Okay, so today marks the start of the NBA Finals, basketball's most prestigious matchup. Two teams fighting for the chance to lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy and write their names in the history books. But how did we get here? There are 30 teams in the NBA, and each team plays 82 games. This season was full of drama, excitement, shock moves, and so much more. Today we'll be ranking how each of the 30 NBA teams performed this season. This includes the regular season and the playoffs, but nothing regarding next season like the draft lottery or upcoming free agency. Only the 82 games plus potential playoff games that each team played this season. Starting with the Atlanta Hawks finished the regular season with a 41-41 record and finished as the 7th seed in the East. Overall, the season was quite the letdown for this team. Newly acquired DeJounte Murray was good, putting up 21, 5, and 6 on decent shooting splits, but his fit alongside Trae Young was questionable and he did not elevate the team like he had done in San Antonio. The Hawks got rid of Nate McMillan and brought in Quinn Snyder, thinking he'd be able to turn the ship around, but that didn't happen. The Hawks went out in the first round of the playoffs with a 4-2 series loss to the Celtics, which basically sums up their season. They get a D-tier ranking for a disappointing season. Next are the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics finished the regular season with a 57-25 record and finished as the 2nd seed in the East. Boston had a great bounce-back season from their NBA Finals trip from last season. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown had amazing seasons, with Tatum averaging 39-5, while Brown averaged 27-7-4. New coach Joe Mazzulla did a great job leading this team as they went on to have the 2nd best offensive rating and 3rd best defensive rating in the entire league. Boston did great in the playoffs, beating the Hawks in 6 and the 76ers in 7, ultimately losing out on a return trip to the NBA Finals at the hands of the Miami Heat in one of the most chaotic series of all time. Boston did a great job of running it back and making a deep playoff run, but anything short of a trip to the finals from a contending team isn't going to cut it. Still a great season though, so A tier for the Boston Celtics. Next up are the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets finished the regular season with a 45-37 record and finished as the 6th seed in the East. This season was a catastrophe for the Brooklyn Nets as they managed to lose their 2 superstars in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who went to Phoenix and Dallas respectively, ending the Brooklyn dream that had begun 4 years earlier. The only thing I can give Brooklyn credit for is the pieces they got back in the trades in Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, and some future picks. A season that ended in a first-round sweep at the hands of the 76ers summarizes one of the worst seasons I've seen from a supposed super team in a long time. D tier for the Brooklyn Nets today. Next we have the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets finished the regular season with a 27-55 record and finished as the 14th seed in the East. This season, like every season, is a forgettable one for the Charlotte Hornets, a team that simply can't get it figured out. LaMelo Ball didn't even play half the season after getting injured and became an irrelevant team faster than you can say Hornets. Since we're only focusing on this season itself and not the lottery, the 2022-23 Charlotte Hornets were a failure of a team. Next we have the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls finished the regular season with a 40-42 record and finished as the 10th seed in the East. This was another season that proved to the entire league that the Chicago Bulls aren't ready for the spotlight just yet. They had 4 players on the entire roster average more than 10 points a game, and while they were good defensively, having the 5th best defensive rating in the league, but their inconsistent play, especially before the All-Star break, was enough to send them crashing down the standings. They just narrowly missed the playoffs, losing in the play-in to the Miami Heat, capping off another forgettable season. I'll give them a generous C-tier ranking today. Next we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers finished the regular season with a 51-31 record and finished as the 4th seed in the East. This was a great season for the Cavs, as Donovan Mitchell's first run of the team saw him average 28-4-4, including a 71-point game versus the Bulls. Garland, Mobley, and Allen all had good seasons, really solidifying Cleveland's future moving forward. The only letdown for this team was the playoffs, where they lost in the first round to a strong Knicks team in 5 games. All in all, this Cavs team was super fun to watch, and I think it's the beginning of something special in Cleveland. B tier for them. Next we have the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks finished the regular season with a 38-44 record and finished as the 11th seed in the West. Is there anything good to say about the season for the Mavs? They got absolutely fleeced in the Kyrie trade. They wasted a potential MVP season from Luka, which on averaged 32, 9, and 8, and their experimental duo of Luka and Kyrie only won 7 games after the All-Star break. They missed out on the playoffs completely, and the future of this organization is starting to look more questionable than certain. Failure of a season from a team with huge expectations and potential. Next we have the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets finished the regular season with a 53-29 record and finished as the 1st seed in the West. This was finally the year where everything clicked for the Denver Nuggets. Jokic had an MVP caliber season, Murray had a great bounce back season from his injury, MPJ found his stride, and the entire team looked like a solid, cohesive unit. The Nuggets found themselves in the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history after defeating Minnesota in 5, Phoenix in 6, and LA in 4 for their first ever playoff series sweep. Regardless if they win or lose the finals, this has been a sensational season for the Nuggets, and I truly hope they go all the way and win the chip. S tier for a great basketball team. Next we have the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons finished the regular season with a 17-65 record and finished as the 15th seed in the East. Not much to say for the worst team in the league this season. Cade Cunningham played 12 games before going out with an injury, but they did get some solid play from Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, and recently acquired James Wiseman. Overall, this team was dead last in the rankings for most of, if not the entire season, and you really can't put them anywhere but the F tier. Next we have the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors finished the regular season with a 44-38 record and finished as the 6th seed in the West. The key takeaway from this season was the fact that Golden State was unstoppable at home but couldn't win a game on the road to save their life. Going 33-8 at home is what great teams do, but going 11-30 on the road is what lottery teams do. The Warriors had 3 20-plus point scorers in the regular season in Curry, Thompson, and Poole, and had a relatively solid bench for most of the season. They won their first round series in 7 games against the Sacramento Kings, but fell short in the second round, losing in 6 to the Los Angeles Lakers. Overall, the Warriors were a competitive team, but their road struggles truly hindered what could have been a great season for them. C tier for the Dubs today. Next, we have the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets finished the regular season with a 22-60 record and finishes the 14th seed in the West. The Rockets had another historically awful season, including 2 separate 10-plus game losing streaks over the course of 82 games. While they got some good development from their young guys in Green, Porter Jr., and Sengun, this team was awful and looked to be awful for the next few years until their young guys become established NBA players. F tier for a forgettable Rockets season. Next, we have the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers finished the regular season with a 35-47 record and finishes the 11th seed in the East. The only thing the Pacers had going for them was the stellar play from their all-star guard Tyrese Halliburton. I literally don't know what else this team did right apart from getting good play from rookie Benedict Mathurin. A super forgetful season for a team that I believe should be fighting for playoff action. D tier for a disappointing season. Next up are the Los Angeles Clippers. The Los Angeles Clippers finished the regular season with a 44-38 record and finished as the 5th seed in the West. The Clippers had a pretty decent season considering their 2 best players were dealing with injuries for most of it. The rest of the Clippers team actually played pretty well with multiple double-digit point scorers. Their midseason acquisition of Russell Westbrook was risky, but seems to have paid off for them as he looks like a solid third player alongside PG and Kawhi. The Clippers had a disappointing playoff run, losing to Phoenix in the first round 4-1, but considering their stars were hurt and did not play, it was an unforeseen result. The Clippers were good, but injuries held them back, and you can't really fault them for that. C tier for a competitive but unfulfilling team. Next, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers finished the regular season with a 43-39 record and finishes the 7th seed in the West. The Lakers had a super shaky start to the season, starting with a 2-10 record and being stuck in 13th place in the West. The Lakers started to make some changes, including acquisitions such as Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt, getting rid of Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley. The Lakers made the playoffs where they eliminated the 2nd seed Grizzlies in 6, the 6th seed Warriors in 6, but ultimately lost to the Nuggets in 4. For a team that looked dead in the water before the trade deadline, I think they made a great comeback and built a very solid team that went a lot further in the playoffs than I had anticipated. B tier for a solid Lakers season. Next up are the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies finished the regular season with a 51-31 record and finishes the 2nd seed in the West. A season filled with storylines that no team ever wants to have. Whether it was Ja Morant's off-court shenanigans leading to a suspension or Dillon Brooks thinking he could poke bears, the Grizzlies were too focused on everything but basketball. A great regular season led to a super disappointing playoff run, which saw them get bounced in the first round by LeBron and the Lakers in 6 games. This team had so much potential to do great, including the Defensive Player of the Year on the roster, but decided to throw it all away in the span of 6 games. D tier for this Grizzlies season. Next, we have the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat finished the regular season with a 44-38 record and finishes the 8th seed in the East. The Miami Heat had a decent regular season, which saw them have 6 players in their squad average at least 10 plus points per game. Statistically, the Heat weren't great at any one thing, finishing with the 25th best offensive rating and the 9th best defensive rating. It wasn't until the playoffs that they really hit their stride. They beat Chicago in the play-in to clinch the 8th seed, then they beat the Bucks in 5 games in a totally unpredictable series, then they beat the Knicks in 6 games which no one saw coming, and they just beat the Boston Celtics in 7 games in one of the craziest playoff series we've ever seen. The Miami Heat now find themselves in the NBA Finals, and against all odds, they have a decent chance of beating the Denver Nuggets. A season that we will be talking about for years to come. The Miami Heat go into the S tier today. Next, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks finished the regular season with a 58-24 record and finished as the 1st seed in the East. The Bucks had a super dominant regular season, finishing with the best record in the league, an MVP caliber 31-12-6 outing by Giannis, and 6 players putting up double-digit points a night. However, as much as we want to glorify this team, we can't pretend like the playoffs didn't happen. The 1st seed Bucks lost to the 8th seed Heat in 5 games. Yes, Giannis got hurt in Game 1 and missed Games 2 and 3, but still, a 5-game series loss to a playing team is something I can't look past, especially when you're the favorites to win the title. C tier for this Bucks team. Next up are the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves finished the regular season with a 42-40 record and finishes the 8th seed in the West. The Timberwolves had a decent season, but that's about as far as you can go when your best player is injured and only plays 29 games. Anthony Edwards stepped up and averaged 25-6-4, but Rudy Gobert's first season in Minnesota was nothing spectacular, putting up 13-11-1. The Timberwolves lost their first round series matchup in 5 games to the Nuggets, which we all expected. Overall, Minnesota did pretty well for missing their all-star in Towns, but didn't do good enough to wow any of us. C tier for them today. Next, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. The New Orleans Pelicans finished the regular season with a 42-40 record and finishes the 9th seed in the West. I had high hopes for this Pelicans side going into the season, and they played pretty well at the start, going 23-12 in their first 35 games before it all went downhill. It's hard to say where this side would have ended up if their star players hadn't gotten injured, with Zion only playing 29 games and Brent Ingram only playing 45. CJ and JV did a good job carrying the offensive load for this team, but they ultimately missed the playoffs, losing to the Thunder in the play-in. A season that left us with plenty of what-ifs from this Pelicans team. They have to settle for the C tier today. Next, we have the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks finished the regular season with a 47-35 record and finished as the 5th seed in the East. Personally, I thought the Knicks had a great season this year. Julius Randle had another all-star season, putting up 25-10-4. Jalen Brunson made a huge impact on his new team, putting up 24-4-6, and RJ Barrett continued his development, putting up 19-5-3. The Knicks destroyed their over-under win prediction of 38.5 from the start of the season and had multiple games where they beat their opponents by 30 or more. The Knicks beat the Cavaliers in 5 games in the first round, but ultimately fell short to the Heat in 6 games in the second round. All in all, this was a very solid solid run by the Knicks, full of momentum and hype that will help them later on. A tier for the Knicks today. Next we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder finished the regular season with a 40-42 record and finished as the 10th seed in the West. For a team that's supposed to be rebuilding and developing young guys, the OKC Thunder did a great job playing competitive basketball this season. They lost their second overall pick in Chet Holmgren before the season began, but an MVP caliber season from SGA, which put up 31-5-6, along a step-up season from Josh Giddey, who put up 17-8-6, was enough to get this team to the play-in. For a team that could have finished dead last, the Thunder did a great job developing talent and winning games along the way. This may be controversial, but I'm putting them in the A tier today. Next up is the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic finished the regular season with a 34-48 record and finishes the 13th seed in the East. You think the Magic had an awful season based on their record and standings, which statistically they did, but it was the individual play from Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner that really stood out for me this season. Banchero took home the Rookie of the Year award after putting up 27-4, while Wagner did a great job helping out, putting up 19-4-4 along the way. The Magic never looked like a playoff team, but still had a decent showing, so I'll put them in the B tier. Next we have the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers finished the regular season with a 54-28 record and finished as the 3rd seed in the East. The Sixers got great production from their top 3 players, with Embiid putting up 33-10-4 and taking home the MVP, Harden putting up 21-6-11, and Maxey putting up 23-4. A great regular season got overshadowed by a poor playoff performance, which saw them sweep the Nets in 4 games but lose to the Celtics in 7, a series they should have and certainly could have won. As great as they were for 86 games before meeting the Celtics, we can't pretend that going out in the second round yet again is anything beyond expectation. C tier for a 76ers side that let us all down. Next we have the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns finished the regular season with a 45-37 record and finished as the 4th seed in the West. The highlight of the Suns season was trading for Kevin Durant in a blockbuster trade that saw KD and TJ Warren move to Phoenix in exchange for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jake Crowder, 4 first-round picks in the 2028 draft swap. The regular season ended on a high note for Phoenix, who went 8-0 with Durant in the lineup. The Suns took care of business in the first round, beating the Clippers in 5 games, but lost to the Nuggets in 6. I can't tell if the Suns went beyond their expectations or underachieved, but for a team with championship aspirations and a window that's closing for their time to win, it has to be a C tier rating for them today. Next up are the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers finished the regular season with a 33-49 record and finished as the 13th seed in the West. A great season from Damian Lillard saw him put up 32-5-7, while Anthony Simons took a huge lead, putting up 21-3-4, and Jeremy Grant putting up 21-5-2. But all that went to waste as they gave up on their playoff hopes after the All-Star break, going 5-19 in their last 24 games. This season was supposed to be at least a playoff outing for Portland, but for a franchise that is completely lost and has no sense of direction moving forward with their future, I'm not surprised that this was the outcome. F tier for a complete failure of a season. Next we have the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings finished the regular season with a 48-34 record and finished as the 3rd seed in the West. The Kings had an amazing season, which saw them finish with the best offensive rating in the entire league. Fox, Sabonis, Herter, Barnes, and Monk were all instrumental in getting the Kings to their first playoff appearance since 2006. The Beam team captured the hearts of all NBA fans, and we were finally ready to see them in the playoffs again. However, they had to go up against the reigning champions, Warriors, and fell short in 7 games and was the best first-round series of these playoffs. I don't care what anyone says, this team was sensational throughout the entire season, and they're going in the S tier today. Next up are the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs finished the regular season with a 22-60 record and finished as the 15th seed in the West. The Spurs had the 2nd worst offensive rating and the literal worst defensive rating in the entire league. Kellen Johnson was the only good player on this team, and I genuinely can't remember anyone else who played for them this season. Wait, no, I can, but we don't talk about him anymore. All in all, the Spurs were so clearly tanking for the lottery, and for that reason, they're going in the F tier today. Next up are the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors finished the regular season with a 41-41 record and finished as the 9th seed in the East. Another disappointing season for the Raptors saw them narrowly miss playoff basketball, losing out to the Chicago Bulls by 4 points. The Raptors starting 5 all put up at least 15 plus points per game, which was the highlight of their roster, as the backup players did a whole lot of nothing. The Raptors proved to us this season that they don't have the star power or the depth to really make a deep playoff run, and a potential rebuild or a lot of trades are coming soon for this roster. A super disappointing season, they have to go into the D tier today. Next are the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz finished the regular season with a 37-45 record and finished as the 12th seed in the West. They had a solid start to the season, going 12-8 in their first 20 games, then proceeded to fall off a cliff. The shining light of the Jazz season was Larry Markkinen becoming an all-star after averaging 25-9-2 for the season. Apart from that, they were pretty bad, but that was expected from a team that's rebuilding. Not much to say from a season that saw the beginning of the Jazz rebuild. They can go into the C tier today. And lastly, we have the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards finished the regular season with a 35-47 record and finished as the 12th seed in the East. I always forget that the Wizards are a team because for the past few seasons they've either been awful or disappointing, as was the case this year. While the Wizards had 3 players averaging over 20 points this season in Beal, Porzingis, and Kuzma, they did nothing worthwhile unless if we count their 10-game losing streak or their 7-17 record after the All-Star break. I didn't have high hopes for this Wizards team going into the season, and yet I was still disappointed. D tier for them today. And there you have it, we've ranked each NBA team and how their 2022-2023 season went. I'm sad that I won't be able to see the finals live as I will be on vacation, but I'm rooting for the Nuggets to win, and if the Heat pull off the upset and wins the 8th seed, I'll be fine with that too. Hopefully you enjoyed the NBA season as much as you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time.